I'm back with another Heloc update. Finally. What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Rochelle, and I'm back with another video. Thank you guys for tuning in, liking, sharing, and subscribing. You guys are thebomb.com. Now, in today's video, I'm not gonna hold you. I'm back with a Heloc update, okay? Like one for the past 3 months. But this video will not be long. That is my goal. I am sticking to my notes. And so first off, I want to just start with a quick little intro. My name is Rochelle. We are a family of 3, 2 adults, 1 preteen. And we took out a Heloc on our out-of-state property in the amount of $100,000 in an effort to pay down debt more quickly. There's a couple things about that. There's a couple caveats. One is we are a family that maintains a steady income of $10,000 or more a month by having multiple sources of income, which I have gone over in great detail in previous videos. Feel free to check out any of my other content here on the tube. And the other thing is that our goal is to live off of half of our income and send the other half towards our money goals. And the most important thing about this Heloc update that I would like to remind everyone, any of my new viewers, any of my returning viewers, is that we have no primary mortgage on our property. Oh, excuse me. We paid off our out-of-state property, which used to be our property, our primary residence a few years ago. So we are mortgage free in that sense. And so now the Heloc has now become our primary loan. And so, yeah, I want to start with that because a lot of my comments, man, y'all come for me. But this is the reality of being honest and open and transparent. And it's something that I really will continue to do. Life was lifing earlier this year. Unfortunately, we experienced some medical issues with our daughter. And so we had to temporarily pause things, but we are now ready to dive right back into this thing. I won't be going into detail about what those things were, but the fact of the matter was any extra income we had went to covering those things, and we went into more debt to cover what we didn't have. So that's the reality. I would do it again in a minute. It's for our daughter. We also did travel, and we actually had some medical events that happened while we traveled. The debt we have is truly medical debt, unfortunately, but we're going to get there. We're going to knock it out, y'all. Let's dive into more details. So to try and stick to my goal of keeping this video to the point and not too long, we're going to be breaking it down into 3 sections. The first is the Heloc update. The second is the rental property update, which directly relates. And third, our October plan. Our goals, our budget. I want to share that with you as we dive right back into this Heloc / velocity banking style of budgeting. So first off, as I mentioned before, we have the $100,000 loan. It now sits at a balance of $96,978.32. And that is because up until the month of July, I continue to do balance transfers to send money to cover consumer debt that we are paying off. Because essentially we have this Heloc for $100,000 and we have debt greater than $100,000. So at the same time that I'm paying these minimums on these credit cards, I'm also ferociously trying to send that debt to the Heloc bucket because we can pay it down more quickly because the interest, the APR is much, much lower. So let's get into the details. Our Heloc is 97% used at this current day and time. Up until from June to September, our payments totaled $2,980.62 towards the Heloc. Those were just the minimum payments due each month plus a little more. If you watched any of my previous Heloc videos, you know that from the months of January to May, we had no minimum balance because we were gazelle intense, for lack of a better word, hitting that Heloc hard, using what money we needed for bills and sending anything extra to the Heloc. So we never had a minimum payment, but starting in the month of June, we did have a minimum payment. During this time, this pause time, which I'm counting from the months of June to September, we took no money from this Heloc. We had zero advances. We only paid the minimum plus a little more, on average about $800 per month. And we just we left it alone. We wanted to be responsible with it in the middle of the crisis the medical event that we were experiencing. Now I want to briefly talk about the pros and cons of having a HELOC. The first thing I want to start with and preface with is, again, we have no other mortgage on the property other than the HELOC. And I get a lot of questions asking, hey, do you think it's a good idea for me to look more into it? And up until this video, I said definitely you want to look into it. But now that I'm learning a little bit more about the HELOC, my answer would still be the same. Yes, definitely look into it, do your research, get your questions answered. But I would use a lot of caution if this is your primary residence. We live out of state. We don't live where our investment property is. It is now a space that we use and it is tenant occupied. So with those two things in mind, a HELOC made sense for us at the time to try and pursue. I definitely would be careful if you still have a primary mortgage on your home, and then you would have to, in addition, look for a HELOC, and you would, in addition, have a HELOC payment. I do think that would be kind of difficult, but it depends on your income, your flexibility. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even depend more on your income. It depends on how much of your income you actually get to keep, which is what we'll get to in the budget. Yes, I still would do a HELOC in lieu of all these credit cards and all this high interest, all this consumer debt. I wish I had known about a HELOC years ago. My husband and I have always been homeowners. We were fortunate enough to buy this property when we were in our very early 20s from family. And so it was at a good rate. It was at a good time in our life. And so we were able to knock out the mortgage very quickly. So I wish I had known about this option of a HELOC, because we've always had equity in our home. But it's just one of those things. This is why I'm here, to share my journey. If you are someone who can relate, who has that same journey, you might want to seriously consider a HELOC in lieu of getting more credit cards or slow paying your credit cards down. That is one pro I can say, is the lower interest for a HELOC, and with it being the only loan that we have on the property currently. The other pro that I would like to talk about is the convenience of having the HELOC through an app or mobile service. It made it very easy to look at where our progress is, answer any questions we had, reach out to customer service if we needed to. So those are features that I would look for if I were to seriously consider a HELOC. I would want to make sure that I had easy access to all the information I needed. I could make as many extra payments as I want without any penalties, and that it was very clear and updated so that I can understand the information that I'm looking at. A lot of places, that's not the case. So this is why one perk I like about the HELOC. Also, one thing that is a pro and a con is, again, the interest. The interest was significantly lower than the credit card interest that we are currently paying on our credit cards versus the HELOC. So I consider it both to be a pro and a con. Right now, the interest is sitting at 11.5%. I don't have any credit cards with an APR that low. And that's because I have credit cards from years ago. So back in my college days, so you can imagine what the interest is on those. It's pretty disgusting. But that is another perk to me of the HELOC. And I think it's why we were able to make so much progress in the first 3 months of having the HELOC, back when everything was good, everything was kosher. We got the balance. We basically always kept full use of the HELOC. So at all times we had an $80,000 or $90,000 balance on the HELOC, but that was, again, because we were knocking this debt out. We made several payments. If you look at my older videos, we were able to make payments of upwards of $10,000 or $20,000 very quickly in those months, because the interest was so low. Okay. Now, so we kind of jumped to the cons, one being interest, another being the fact that it is a debt. And I took some time in these last few months to really do some reading. And one of the books I'm currently reading is by Ramit, and he has a show on Netflix. That's how I really found out about him. Unfortunately, the algorithm never algorithmed and never showed me his podcast, never showed me his content. We're not even gonna go there. But anyway, I really appreciate his perspective because he essentially says that it's, more than one way to get to your goal of being, living a rich life. Of course, it's going to start with that payoff, but it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice everything, which has always been my way of financially living. Even through all of the debt that we have, we're still going to travel. We're still going to live a rich life in a sense without waiting until we get into our older years to reap the benefits of all the money and all the things that we have accomplished. So that's me personally. I don't look at anyone else's viewpoint and say that that's wrong. That's just me personally. So at the end of the day, you have to respect the debt. And it was a good reset for me in this moment, that this crazy year that we've had with the medical issues we've had with our daughter. I'm just so grateful that we had the debt to use to pay these medical bills, because if we didn't, what were we supposed to do? And so there is, good and bad things about debt, but at the end of the day, you need to put some respect on it. And as soon as your emergency is over, everything's done, you need to get right back into the game and knock this debt out. And that's what we're ready to do now. We depleted our emergency savings, so some of the income that you will see me bring in through the next several months will go back to getting that emergency fund back in order, but we're also going to be knocking out debt. Can't wait to share the progress with you guys. If you know me and you saw my earlier content earlier this year, you know the possibilities. You know how serious I am about debt payoff. And again, I think because I was sharing my journeys and being consistent with that, it helped me. It fueled me even more to do the right thing and make the necessary sacrifices. So yes. The last con that is sort of a pro, sort of a con, is the payment breakdown process. This is very important when you're being gazelle intense with your debt payoff. Now, just a few months ago when everything was going well, I had a certain way that my payments would hit the balance versus when I paused our aggressive activity and we were just making the minimum balance plus a little extra. And so I feel that this is a good learning point, and it's a good reminder for me of where I am in this game, where I need to hit it hard. So in the earlier months, in the month of May, I made a $3,500 payment toward the Heloc balance. It was a principal only payment, and it immediately shaved $3,500 off of the Heloc balance, which was a good thing. Versus when the payments were just the bare minimum, the minimum plus a little more, in the month of September, I made a payment of $979.58. Only $1.17 went toward principal. The other $978.41 went to interest. This is what they mean. And I don't know who they is, but other people who talk about how it's bad to have a Heloc. That is bad news to me. Interest is always going to get paid first. And if you understand your Heloc and you know what you're involved in, you know that this is how they make their money. They're going to make sure they get their interest up front. Anything after that will go to the principal. So that was a lesson for me. Hey, these last 3 months where you weren't able to be aggressive with your debt payoff, they made money off you. So now I'm in the zone. I understand where I am, and I know that I need to be making extra payments every month to reap the rewards of having a Heloc. Okay, so those are the pros and cons. We have caught up on the Heloc. We were paused. We're now restarting our plan to use this thing to pay down debt aggressively. Okay, so now let's talk about our next section, which is the rental property itself. I wanted to make this a part of my Heloc update. I don't know if it's something I'll be doing routinely. You guys let me know if this is information that you find useful in deciding if a Heloc is for you or not. But I wanted to share this piece because I don't see a lot of people share actual and real numbers. But basically, we use the rental property to bring in income. And for the last, it's close to 5 years now, we have been so fortunate. We have always had paying tenants, and I'm so grateful for that. Now, this year was our worst year yet in that regard. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring in income for several months from our rental property. And so I was so, again, grateful that we had paid off the mortgage already for this property, because that was one less thing I had to worry about. So again, that's another thing you want to be thinking about with this HELOC. If you have an investment property that you are using, it's not your primary residence, and you pull the equity out, you start the HELOC process, what happens when you don't have that income, that rental property income? Can you still afford these monthly payments? And again, this is something that I speak more about in my budgeting videos, but it's so important to diversify your income and diversify your spending, because things can get real very quickly. And the reality is, as my negative comments like to bring out, they can take your home. And so one of the first things that my husband and I did in this whole, we've always been this way. We've always had multiple side hustles, so that we can always have backup plans, backup income to cover our bills. And the other thing that we do is we live very simple. Yes, we live in Hawaii, and yes, our rent is high, but outside of our housing expenses, we don't have a lot of things so once this debt gets paid off, oh honey, we'll be in a good place. So let's talk about costs that come with having this property, whether we bring in income or not. The first thing I want to do is I updated we're inside of my home buying and mortgage payoff guide, and I have my bills listed here in the bill tracker. And the first thing I did was update some of these numbers, because honey, yesterday's bills were not today's bills. And in this world that we're living in of greed and inflation and just natural reality of everything costs more, yeah, they got me. So first up, let's talk about the good increase. The good increase is that our property manager was able to secure a higher paying tenant, which meant that her monthly fee that we pay went up. That's something I'm always going to pay, because without having this property manager, I don't think I would have been able to sustain having an out-of-state property, to make sure we stay legal at all times, make sure taxes are cared for, the property is well maintained. I just sleep better at night knowing that someone else is keeping a watchful eye over that whole process. So the property manager used to make $150 a month from us, which is a portion of the income, but we have to pay that whether we have income from the rental property or not. Her fee will now go up to about $175. It's somewhere between $170 and $175. And that's because we're collecting higher income, which I'll go into for the last part of this video, which is the budget. So total, we're going to be paying her $2,055 a year. Next up is pest control. This is another perk of having a property manager. She found a pest control company to work with that is cheaper than the one we've been using for all these years. So we were paying $46 a month for pest control, just for maintenance, just to check on the property, make sure it's okay. And so that was about $550 a year. She was able to find a pest control company that would charge us quarterly $45 per quarter. And that, now if we have any activity or anything that changes, we'll just have to pay $45 for them to come out one time to treat the problem. And I like that actually much better, because I felt like I was paying for pest control every month and we weren't having any activity. So our costs went down significantly from $552 a year to $180 a year. Next is legal. If you know me and you watch any of my videos, you know I can't stand monthly bills. And so I pay for our legal stuff once annually. And it's $240 a year. That's something I did earlier this year, and I'm so glad I did it. So it's paid for the year until next year. There was no change with that as far as I know. We'll see when the next price comes in. Next is property taxes, which are very high in the state of Maryland. If you haven't heard the twang, your girl's from Bmore. And we pay $2,400 roundabout every year for our property taxes. If we were still a resident of the state of Maryland, we would have the option to pay semi-annually. But since we are out of state, they said, no, honey, give me all that money once a year, which I can appreciate. So we had to pay for our property taxes over the summer, and y'all, they went up. They are now $2,581.25. Like I said, it is what it is. I have a couple reasons of why I think it went up. I do think it went up because we got the property appraised. Remember, that was part of the Heloc process. And so the insurance company gets their hands on that information. And I'm pretty sure that the state of Maryland does too somehow, or the city of Baltimore. And so I'm not surprised at all that that's what happened. So we had to just eat that $181.25 increase. Next is the landlord insurance that we use. It used to be $645. It went up. It is now $1,084.98 for the year. I try to pay everything I can for the year. And so this again is, that's like $400 more. It's ridiculous. And again, I spoke with them, and I did reach out to them. And honestly, I think it had everything to do with the appraisal, because the value of our home almost doubled. Actually, it almost tripled because of the repairs and renovations that we've done in the past. And so I think it all just hit at once. Honestly, we hadn't had the house appraised in a very long time. And so I'm grateful that, that helped our net worth overall, that helped all of that, but now the insurance knows. So the last bill is the ground rent, which is $96 per year. If you know, if you're from the state of Maryland, you know what ground rent is. I've went into more detail about that in previous videos. It's still the same. It's $96 per year. And so we'll make another payment for that in the month of November, because they won't let me pay the full $96 every year. I have to pay it twice a year. It is what it is. So what that means is that our total overall cost just to keep this property afloat, whether it's a tenant there or not, for the year, it used to come to $5,733 a year. It now comes to $6,237.23 a year, which on average means I need to set aside about $520 a month in order to offset those costs. And again, I'm just glad we don't have the primary mortgage to worry about, because this is essentially our old mortgage payment. Our mortgage payment used to be about $500 to $600 a month. And so essentially it's like we're paying the mortgage. That's in my head what I'm thinking of. These are the running costs to have a property. So when people say, oh, get into the property game, and I actually find channels who are awesome and share the actual numbers, their actual profit, once they pay for everything, their actual profit that they get to walk away with every month is usually like $500 or less a month. And I'm like, this is so much work. I don't know if it's worth it. So to be able to say, to have a certain amount of income, which I'm about to share next, every month coming in with a tenant, we're doing better than a lot of, people who still have a mortgage. So I try to be grateful in that sense, but this is our reality. Everything went up, everything. After looking at the bills and taking into account some of the things that we had to get done for the property, in the state of Maryland, I can't speak for everyone, but depending on what city or county you live in, you have to pay for registrations, inspections, taxes, fees, logins. There's so many things that the property manager is always looking at and making sure are taken care of. And so I've been tracking those in our home expense tracker, along with our renovations and repairs tracker, so that we can really see overall what we have paid for this time that I've been away from you guys. And so I hope that this is helpful. Overall, we have paid about $6,552 if you're, don't have a tenant, that means we have to pay for the utilities, all those things. And so I have made a list, because my goal is to just stay on top of this and track it, no matter the good and the not so good. But so including the things that we've already talked about, the insurance being over $1,000, pest control, taxes being $2,500. These are the numbers that are included in the tracker. It comes to about $6,500, just over. So I need to make sure that and a lot of this, I had to put on a credit card. because I didn't have the income. I didn't have that money to offset those costs. And so I'm going to start including this in our Heloc update because I want you guys to see these numbers going down. And I want you to see my budget, which is the final piece of the puzzle, so you can see how I plan to pay this debt off and to also build savings/sinking funds for these upcoming expected expenses. So this is something that I've always done for all of my budgets, for all of the things going on in our life. And so I wanted to be more specific and share it, and hopefully it helps you guys see the bigger picture and see what I got going on. So now let's talk about our goals for the month of October. And this is just going to be for the foreseeable future. So at least for the rest of 2023, we would like to make double payments toward the Heloc. And so I've included that in my October budget. So if you want to see that budget, it's somewhere here, October budget with me. The goal is to also pay medical debt down as quickly as possible because it is currently on high interest credit cards, and also to pay down our debt that we have accrued from paying all of the expenses that come along with having the property because we did not have that income for several months. And finally, we want to rebuild our emergency fund. We had our fund up to like somewhere between 10 and 15,000 because my goal is to always have a 1 month's worth of bills, to cover with an emergency savings. And so our goal is going to be to rebuild that again. Those are the goals. Now let's talk about our monthly budget. So now I've jumped into my budget planner, my 2023. And I have my budget right here. So for the month of October, this is just for the rental property. We have an estimated income of $2,313. And that's more than the usual amount we can expect to receive. And that is because we are expecting some rental income for the month of September. So total, we should bring in a $2,313. $1,713 for the month of October and about $600 from the month of September. So everything's automated. So we just have to see how these numbers will line up. We'll see what happens. So how will we spend it? Well, first I want to put $100 and restart our rental property emergency fund. Then next I want to send money to bills. So the property manager will get her usual. For this bill, because I kind of can see what the bill is going to be because she sends the bill for the following month at the end of the previous month. So I can already see what my bill is going to be roundabout. So it's estimated to be about $171.30. The lawn guy will get $55. Real quick. So for years, I've always, going back and forth about this. I would love to know what you guys do. Those of you who have rental properties, is the lawn the responsibility of the tenant? Is pest control the responsibility of the tenant? I personally like paying for the lawn because in Baltimore, they will actually fine you if they drive by and see your lawn uncared for, unmaintained. And I just don't want to even go that route of having to pay a fine, and let the tenant have to pay that back. It's just easier for me to have the lawn maintenance covered by my money. Of course, through the income or whatever. It's just something I've pretty much done mostly, I think. I think maybe at times we have had the tenant jump in and pay, but me personally, I would love to know what you guys do in that regard. Also with pest control. I've always paid for pest control, no matter which tenant, because I feel like that's helping to maintain the home, because I'm going to be like so upset if I see the property and all of a sudden it's got rampant pest problems. That would be like and pests are so hard to get rid of, especially in the townhome that we have, which is has connected properties next to it. So I'm like, yeah, no, it's always going to be me paying for pest control. But total bills comes to $237 for the month of October. Then let's talk about the big thing, which is debt. So the minimum I need to pay on the rental property credit card is $176. Then I would like to send an additional $500 to that same credit card as a debt snowball payment. Then I would like to send another $1,000 toward our personal debt, meaning either the Heloc or our medical debt. So based on how the numbers hit, how we do as far as our other income sources for the month of October will determine which category that $1,000 goes to, but it will be either medical or Heloc debt. Total $1,676 towards debt. Then I want to send $100 toward our rental property sinking funds. Just to start that snowball again. Remember, we have these bills coming, and I need to be setting aside $500 a month at least to make sure that I'm always going to have money set aside. So usually I would pull that $500, but because we have so much debt that we want to get rid of as quickly as possible, I'm sending only $100 to sinking funds this month. Now, if I have other income from some of my other income sources, I will go back and look at the budget and say, that's right, I said I wanted to send $500, about $520 a month towards the rental property sinking fund. I need to make sure I check that box. So check back with my budget review and see if I actually stick to that. Then the last thing is I want to pay myself. I want to pay myself $200. I always try to make sure all our bases are covered. And at the end of the day, y'all, this is a lot of work. And the whole point of having a rental property is that it's supposed to be an investment, right? You're supposed to see some type of yield, some type of reward from it. And if I keep doing something and working hard for free, my head is not in the game. But if I know I can set a little bit to the side to pay myself for my time and effort, making sure everybody else is getting paid, all the other bases are covered. Me personally, this is again just my opinion. I want to pay myself something because this is supposed to be a form of making money, right? So $200 is going to go to me. So that's my budget for the month of October. So much for a short video. So the last thing I do want to share is how it went for the month of September, which was our first month in a few months of bringing in some rental property income. I wanted to share with you guys how we spent it. So we brought in a total of $2,503.83. Here's how we spent it. First, we had an invoice to pay from the property manager totaling $1,062.80. And that was for a series of things. We do pay our property manager a finder's fee every time she secures a new tenant, which is usually, on average, we have paid that 3 times. We've had 3 separate tenants, I think, in 5 years. Yeah, I think so. I'm so bad with stuff like that. Yes, I think we've had, so I always view this as a plus because I don't have to market the property. I don't have to go, begging people, hey, y'all go on my Facebook and all that. I just find it very good to just draw the line. I've learned a lot of lessons in the past. And so it's so much easier just to have her do that. So most of the tenant who, we have now, the last couple of tenants, they don't even know I exist. All they know is it's under a business and it's through the property manager. And I just find that that's easier for keeping things professional. Alrighty, so then I set aside $45 for future pest control. Our last quarterly bill, which we'll have for between October to December, because I know it's wintertime and that's when you usually will see an increase in activity. And so I wanted to go ahead and set that to the side. And then we sent $1,000 to our joint bills to cover bills that we accrued in the month of September, just regular personal bills. And so total bills came to $2,107.80. Then we sent the remainder, which was $396.03 to our rental property buffer account to cover any anticipated upcoming bills. So I wanted to set aside the property manager fee for next month, since I already know what it's going to be, pay the minimum on the credit card so that that's covered for the month of September, things like that. So y'all, that is my Heloc update. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you kind of like a bird's eye view, kind of zoomed in to see exactly what I have going on. Thank you to everyone who has been so positive. Even when you have questions, like coming to me like just mad cool, like, hey, listen, this sounds a little sus, but can I get more info about this? I appreciate that so much. I have very few negative comments. Honestly, I have had to welcome some people to the block party, but overall, 99% of my comments are super awesome. And it's such a great conversation to have because I don't see a lot of people sharing this type of content. And so it's no surprise to me at all that this is my best performing content with just me sitting and chilling and talking to y'all for a long time. So that is it. I will be back next month in the month of October with another Heloc budget update to let you guys know how it went. Until then, I'll see y'all. Peace, love, and budgets.